Peace, peace. What's good? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's alive and well and kicking and all good. This is DJ KY's, aka Kato, and I'd like to welcome you to the Real 360 show. Today we have a good show for you, ladies and gentlemen, and with no further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host so he can introduce our guest speaker for today. None other than my brother in God, Mr. Josh Shamel Allah, aka Mr. PhD himself. Peace, God.
Peace, 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 peace. Good afternoon, good evening to all our followers, listeners, and friends. We want to give out our condolences again to the Earth Queen Cipher, Asia Mean, who's understanding, Al Gamal. We want to make sure that everybody in the nation understand that we are one body, one mind, one thought. We all in one accord. Today we have a special guest. We have Mr. Keith Saunders, assistant principal of South Hampton High School. But that's not his beginning. In his beginning, he came from Roosevelt, Long Island, just like I did. We grew up in the same community dealing with the same social ills. Brother Saunders took a path of standing up and being a social activist on many different locations and dealing with the youth in our community. Starting out teaching elementary school kids in Ulysses Bias in Roosevelt, Long Island. Also coaching basketball for the fifth and sixth graders there, which I think started his path on to really mentoring. At this point in time, I want to bring the brother on and let our family, our followers to see and meet him and give him an opportunity to speak for himself. Brother Keith Saunders, could you please come on?
Peace, brothers. How you doing?
Peace. Peace. I want everybody to really realize like how far we go back. Like I know we have a lot of individuals that come on the show that I have personal relationships with, but none other more personal than this relationship right here. This relationship right here, blood couldn't get no thicker. You know, we go back 46, 47 years as far as I can remember. My mother and his mother was close friends. Brother, I looked at his mother like my godmother. His grandmother, you know what I'm saying, took care of me and babysat me. So a lot of the things that we went through on occasion together. Um, he introduced me to a book called What They Never Taught in History class because he was taking an African American study class in Nassau Community College. He also embarked on various different schools of thought to get his self-awareness because he had a social agenda. He had an activist spirit with him. He saw things that was going on in the community and he wanted to help change it. And one thing I will say about him, he was strong enough not to indulge in any of the activities that were going on in the community or deal with the social ills and not be judgmental on brothers and sisters that were. So right now, I want y'all to understand and introduce y'all to Keith Saunders and let him give a brief overview of who he is. Keith, how you doing today, brother?
I am awesome, brother. Thank you for having the opportunity to be a part of this show and this platform. So I'm honored for this opportunity to meet your audience.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
First and foremost, me always start with the basics. I'm the son of Elizabeth Saunders and the grandson of Onita Saunders, and come from a family of women, strong women who pretty much held me down. And the men were not there. So I was blessed to have strong women in my life to shape me, and a wise mother to put me in a room with other men who were not my father, who was able to give me guidance and direction. I'm a husband. I have twins, Grace and Keith, who are 8 years old. So my first ministry is everything is being father and husband. So I want the brothers out there to know and understand that home is your number one base. If your home is out of order, most likely your life is going to be out of order. So make sure that your home is in order. So I make sure that my wife and my seeds are in order, number one. So it's embarrassing when your last days come and everybody's at your funeral and telling how great you were, talking about all the things that you did for them, and your family is looking at them with the side eye, like, he ain't do that for us. So the base, the foundation is family. So that's the motto, my mantra that I live by. So when I'm doing my profession, I'm an educator. I have I'm currently a school administrator in Suffolk County in Long Island, and as in that position, I'm the assistant principal. And it puts me in a room of children that don't look like me, where I can be able to share our culture with them and give them an example of an upright, strong black man that they don't normally see. And coming from my past experience of 27 years in this profession, I was always in, as we call it, the belt where we from, the Roosevelt, Hempstead, Freeport, Baldwin, that vicinity, doing what I do. But that's where sometimes you meet your biggest struggles because you think it should be your glory because all the administrators look like you, the boarders look like you, the principals look like you, the directors look like you, but their consciousness is nowhere close to what your consciousness is. So they're basically wrapped up Oreo cookies that they have the perception of you, but the thought process is far from you.
Mhm.
So
Well,
that
well,
knowledge
let's.
itself is missing severely amongst our educators, and we expect them to get it in schools. School is doing what it's supposed to do: keep you a slave to the system. School is designed to keep you on somebody else's job, not designed for you to go out and do something for yourself and build your own. So when you get stuck in that system, you go to school instead of you taking it a step further of educating yourself about your knowledge of self. It's not the school's responsibility to give you knowledge of self. It comes from home. It comes from the community in which you're from. You can't depend on the slave master to educate you. That's asinine. Pardon my language.
You good, brother? You good? Let's touch on that. Growing up in Roosevelt, Long Island, you saw many of the social ills that were going on, and we a lot of times I speak to the mentorship that we had growing up with Mr. Dennis, Mr. Moore, uh, Mr. Dudley, Mr. Simpson, and and individuals like that that was trying their best to keep us out of the things. What was a motivating factor for you to become an educator in the community?
What motivated me is, as you know, growing up where we from in Roosevelt,
Hmm.
how many black teachers did you have in elementary school? I can answer that for you. Black men,
Hmm.
zero. When I left the public school system and went to private school, Queen of Most Holy Rosary, how many black male teachers or females there? Zero. So I
Hmm.
didn't get my first experience with a black male professor until I got to Nassau Community College, Professor Jenkins. And I was, my counselor recommended me to take this African American course. Being brainwashed and dumb as hell myself, I want to take that stuff. So they said, "Won't you try it?" So once I rolled in that class, it opened my mind to a whole world that didn't exist. I was a quiet, shy kid, as you know. And once I started to learn about knowledge of myself, it gave me a sense of courage, a sense of power, and a sense of a voice to where I became an activist just on the strength of one class that opened my mind. So I started taking everything and reading everything that I can get my hands on. You go through that stage of being angry first. That how can I go through 12 years of school and know nothing about Nat Turner? How can I go to 12 years of school, nothing about Ramses II? How can I go to 12 years of school and know nothing about any of these real people, the Pullman Porters Union? How can I go to school and learn nothing about any of this? So I said, yo, I was really studying to be a accountant because you want to make money, you go to be an accountant. And once I got exposed to him, my goal was like, I want to be like him. I want to be like Professor Jenkins to open the mind of those blind, deaf, dumb, deaf, and blind and out of their mind to get them a different light, to open their consciousness and awareness to more things besides their 8 block neighborhood. So Professor Jenkins was the number one motivator. And I had Professor Wise, who's little, but he still had a lot of information. And I
Right.
was thankful for Professor Jenkins being a strong man who really made me focus on how I spoke when nobody ever did that before. What your subject verb agreement when you speak publicly, how you address yourself, how do you present yourself in public. He was really keen on that. And yeah, he gave me a plan. He said, and I never forget the plan. Before you get married and have to start a family, make sure you finish school, get your finances in order, then you start your family. And that's the path that I took, and it was successful for me. So being able to be an educator was something that I didn't plan on. Because of one counselor who recommended me to one teacher, that's how my whole life changed and shifted. Then I was an athlete, but I had bad knees and I was slow. So I wanted to be around athletics. So I said, let me be going to chiropractor. So I could be there at least. Well, if I'm not in the game, I can work on those who are in the game. And again, this one professor, Professor Ken Jenkins, he died 2 years ago, was the guy who really changed my life.
Okay. With that, it's like you speak on the effects of not having someone that looks like you as an educator in the community growing up, and when you speak to that, it resonates for most of us, those of us who grew up in what I like to call the suburban ghetto, Roosevelt, Long Island. And how was it? How hard was it to stay the path that you did growing up? Because like I said, we all was around different aspects of the social ills, as I like to put it. We all was running around associated with individuals. How hard was it for you to balance yourself and stay the righteous way?
For me, it wasn't hard. I was always different. You know that I was always different. I walked to my own beat. I was always kind of the tallest one in the room, the quietest
Hmm.
one in the room. But if you test me, you get a left hand.
Right.
But I was always just tall and quiet. And but when I was tested, they knew that my hands would fly. Win or lose, they're gonna fly.
Right.
So that's what got me out of public school, and my mom ended up putting me in the private school because I kept having altercations. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, um, it's interesting. The question itself about what kept me away from that. If you remember, I was the one who was deliberately there trying to get everybody else away from that. I was one of
Right.
the only ones in the neighborhood who had a pass where I can actually run away their cells. I was able to run away the fiends with them standing there. Like, get out of here, because I didn't
Yeah.
understand the concept. I was the one who would
Yeah.
everybody who was in my crew knew that if you was trying to make sales, I was telling them get out of here, and I got a pass. I didn't get jumped or
Yeah.
beat up or none of that, which could have been easy for them because one thing that gave me some status, I was a quarterback in football.
Right.
I was the pitcher in baseball. We all grew up together, and they
Right.
knew that I was just a little different, and they used to call me the Wizard. That was my
Right.
street name, the Wizard, because I had a little more wisdom than they did. And although my
Hmm.
family life was just as unstable as theirs, but I had a little different
Hmm.
level of wisdom because I had a wise grandmother who was a firm,
Hmm.
strong black woman who didn't hold her tongue. You caught some tongue lashes, and she was just a strong black woman, and to the point where her words were more vicious than her fists. She didn't have to spank
Right.
you. Her words were
No.
cutting to the point where you would want her to spank you so she could shut up. So when you deal with that environment of growing up in a household like that, in a spiritual household, my grandmother was a realist Christian. She wasn't a holy roller. She was very real with her life, and she knew God, understood God, but she wasn't extreme. My mom was partying, enjoying her life till she found God when I was like 15 years old. So my
Mhm.
mom used to go for those from Roosevelt to Highway Inn. Those who are old enough used to party at the Highway Inn and the Black Falcons Club on Nassau Road. She did her thing till she found Christ herself. And when she
Mhm.
found God, then she became like an extremist. So, and that was the biggest battle with her becoming an extremist from one world. Now she's in a whole different world, and now her
Yeah.
husband is Jesus. So it
Mm.
creates a whole different dichotomy. Uh, uh,
Okay.
um, then when I got knowledge of self, then I became like her on the opposite end, trying to convert her over to a thought process of more than just what you see in that Bible. So we used to have our own conversational battles. I never forget. I brought what's my man's name? Ja, who lived around the corner from me, the big eyes, light skin, 5%. We call
Sean
ourselves going
do?
to challenge, huh?
Not Sean doing though.
No, not Sean. He had big eyes. He lived right around the corner from me. I forgot his name. Joe with the thick
Oh,
bottle
oh,
glasses.
Oh, Malik. Yeah, Malik. Yeah, Malik. Yeah.
So we call ourselves jumping her one day, and like challenging all her thought processes. And almost got a beating for doing so. But that was where I was at because I was like her on the opposite end of being a fundamentalist. I wanted everybody to get the knowledge that I had. I want everybody to know about the kings and queens of Africa. I want everybody to know that we are the original man, the original one, documented
Mm-hmm.
by Dr. Louis Leakey and his archaeologists. I want everybody to know that. So I was like OD and turning people off
Mm-hmm.
because I was just like my mom turning people off, but just from the opposite end.
Right.
So being able to stay focused again, I was more so. My mom knew I was out there hanging out with those dudes too. She knew I was out with the guards and the other brothers because she knew my heart and my spirit was. I told her, yeah, I'm with them. If they with me and they're not doing the crazy stuff. If they with me, they're not
Right.
hustling. If they with me, we going to the movies. We going to the bowling alley. We going to Nassau Community College for the parties. We going to
Right.
Hostel to a party. We going to Stony Brook. Me and Sean we used to go to Stony Brook to a party. We was doing our thing, but they with me, they're not out there hustling. And they knew the criteria to be in my car, you had to be clean. Because
Right.
although I was making $3.35 an hour, I was one with the car. They making $800-900 a night hustling. They didn't have a car. They had sneakers. But I had my little $3.35 an hour saved up, and I had me a car.
Right.
They had every sneaker you could think
And
of, but I had the car. so So for them to be with
so,
me, they knew that there was a level of standard. And then they started calling me Mr. Saunders. And I was 17 years old, the same age they were, because I was just different.
um, our lives cross paths. I think all of our lives, all of our lives. I was one of the ones that you would run off themselves. You know what I mean? And I knew you would do it, even though you had never done it before. I knew you would do it. And I recall seeing you coming off the bus from community college, and I'm trying to shoot a dude off. I'm like, go ahead, man. My family finna come. Finna be some BS. And you did it not to be playing Captain Saver nigga, but you did it because you felt the more obligation of the community. You felt, you know what I mean, you saw, you know what I'm saying, the decline and the demise of our people in the community. And for years, I never understood a lot of things, and we were together. When you was in your search for knowledge yourself, you used to come to the Parliament in Mecca with me. We went, I think, a few times to the Parliament in Mecca. We went a few times to Mosque number 7 because you was interested in that, and I went with you there. And we went to the Slave Theater in Medina, in Brooklyn. And it was like, uh, your journey was very interesting to me. It was very interesting to me because we were young. And of course, you know, I make no gripes about it. I was indulged in a lot of different things. Um, and you wasn't. So I lived two different lifestyles. Because I used to always come back and tell you, like, yo, X, Y, and Z, X, Y, and Z. You'd be like, no, no, because of the way it was when I was with you. And to me, you set a standard for all of us that was around. You set a standard for all of us that certain things can't be this way or it shouldn't be this way. You need to get some of yourself together. Even though we had knowledge of self, it was the application of it for a majority of us that we wasn't ready for. And I always applauded you and never minded playing Robin to you on different occasions. Um, when you started teaching at Ulysses Bias, that was major for you as well as it was for me. I don't know if I've ever told you that. It was major for me because I was on the fence of where I wanted to be. Just, you know what I'm saying, just having my son coming out of a situation with my daughter and her mom, and I was straddling the fence. And you brought me along. You brought me along, whereas I started. initially volunteering and stuff at Ulysses Bias as a teacher's assistant. You remember?
I remember that clearly.
And we started coaching together. That was therapy for me. You know what I mean? That was therapeutic for me. And I wanted, when I bring people on, a lot of times, it's not necessarily to do certain things, but it is to give them their flowers, their roses while they're on the show. I applaud all the things that they're doing currently, and of course, I promote these things that they have going on. But the very moment that you sit on the show and you're here because of the impact not only have you done for the community, but the impact you have left on either myself or K Wise. So at this moment, I'm here to give you what I've always wanted to give you, and that was your flowers. To have a real conversation with you because you've been
Yes,
like a
salute.
brother to me. You've been like a brother to me my whole life. We would go to concerts together. We would go to shows together. We would go to the Slade Theater together. And no matter what I was battling mentally, you was always there. You are my son's godfather. You are my son's godfather for a reason. You know what I mean? For a reason. That a 5% is not my son's godfather, but you are. Because I know the balance and the knowledge and understanding that you have and able to give. A lot of times people don't take the time out and say how they feel about individuals. And these days and times, we don't know. We don't know. So it's an honor and a privilege for me today to say to you how much you meant to me, what you've done for me. You know what I mean? Whether it may sound crazy to some people, but you know me my whole life like I care. Like I care. I never got opportunity to say to you what you've done for me. No matter where you've been in the educational field, and I never got a degree. I never got a degree. You've taken me with you, whether it was in the Roosevelt School District, where we coached fifth and sixth graders, and we would scrimmage the junior high school JV team.
7th and 8th
So we could
graders.
go seventh and eighth graders. We would scrimmage them so we could play in a PAL basketball league that were 2, 3 years older than the kids that we had.
Mhm.
And we not only were successful far as not say the wins, because of course we won maybe one, maybe two games because of course we was in a bigger league and older guys, but we were successful because we was able to forge relationships with young men that were going through things, and at the given time they knew that they could come to myself or Mr. Saunders. At the time, I was calling him Brother Keith X. I was calling him Brother Keith X, and we would we would coach together, coach, and win, lose, or draw. We would work up plans. We would sit together, and it was therapeutic for me. That's when I got peace
Yeah.
mentally. When you called me one day, I was at the time I was working at the juvenile detention center in Westbury, and you was in Malverne. You was in Malverne High School, and you introduced me to the football program over there.
Mhm.
If it wasn't for you, I would have never been an assistant coach for the Malverne junior varsity football team because I
I
had
remember
no
we
ties
played
with Malverne.
basketball there too.
Huh?
We started with basketball first
Yeah, we started junior high
with
school right
with
across the street,
Malverne
Malverne.
and Howard T. Herber.
Yeah, we started there, and we did pretty decent. We did pretty decent. And I think we started junior high football there, right? Yeah,
No, you
junior
started
high
junior high
football.
football. I had the middle school basketball team. We were coaching together. We actually got paid.
Yeah, right.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Because at Roosevelt, that didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And remember in Roosevelt, we started that from absolutely nothing. We
Right.
had no bus, no transportation, no uniforms. We had to fundraise with what's my man's name who held us down? Mark Davis,
Yeah, Mark
the
Davis.
PTA president. He got us uniforms. He was all in to support the vision, and
Right.
we were able to get to games without much parent support. Remember one game we had to get the whole team in Mount Ford Taurus. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah, I remember
Now you
that.
and I are both over 6 feet tall, big guys, and we had to get like 6 to 7 guys in the back seat of a Ford Taurus, and we did it.
Right.
But
And it
that's
was
one of those
this
days
was,
you had to grind.
but you can only do that because of the passion. There was no money involved.
No,
This is what we were talking about, the program that we were setting because we was teaching these kids, these young boys as fifth and sixth graders how to become men. How to become men. And you're talking about two individuals who grew up without their dads. My father was around, but I didn't really grow up with him. He would come in and out. He would his conversation was not of a parental conversation. His level of thought when it came down to parenthood was very different. So it was like growing up without one. So a lot of times my father figure was 5%, older guards or whatever the case may be, or my uncle that lived around the corner. But growing up and being able to coach those young boys, young guys, and I remember we took a young man to what's that the high school basketball tournament out east when there was Rhett. We took
yeah,
Rhett.
Red Butler. Yeah, I remember Red Butler.
Rhett
Yes.
we took Rhett Butler off, and he had never been outside of Roosevelt.
Mm-hmm.
Had never been outside, and I've known his family since his conception type, and he's never been anywhere. And we've had all the little young guys in the community buzzing about our program. We wasn't part of the PAL. We wasn't part of the Police Boys Association, Police Boys League. This is something we've done from scratch, and it was a brainchild of yours.
Well, that came naturally because I don't know if you remember the I Am Corporation with Raymond Matry. I can't have this conversation without mentioning Big Bro Raymond Matry and Diane
Right.
with the I Am Corporation, which is a corporation started of children who were in the mix in bad relationships at home. They created a housing for them, and they taught them how to be entrepreneurs. And one year we created a like a liberation school over the summer camp, which was one of the most
Mhm.
incredible experiences I ever had. And the whole camp was about teaching them how to be creative and build things instead of buying the material. Diane would go to the creative store in the store, take the object apart without paying for it, just to see how it was made. Say, okay, go back to the camp, get the supplies, and make the same thing. Go back again, take something else apart in the store without paying for it, and so she can know how the inner workings of it to teach the kids when they come back. Eventually, they end up getting a big, gigantic house on Centennial, not Centennial, on East Clinton in Roosevelt, where the kids actually lived there. They started getting entrepreneurs who were electricians and plumbers and teaching them how to do that, taught them how to start their own businesses. And it was an honor just to see them. And Raymond will tell you, and what I loved about Raymond, he was an addict at one point. So he would put all his
Mhm.
business out there up front. Like, yo, yes, I did smoke crack. Yes, I was an addict. Now that's out the way. You can't hold that against me. Let's get down to the business.
Right.
And I loved him for that. He just straight up, yo, this is
Mhm.
what it is. This is what I did. Okay, now you can't pull it out of the closet. I'll put it up there front. Now you're gonna give me some money for my kids or what? No, Raymond was hardcore. He was just no filter. And it was a beautiful
Right.
thing. His strength was motivating to me because I knew Raymond all my life because he was friends with my older cousins. And when he changed his life to be more conscious, Raymond was the one who started the Dash program in Roosevelt. Dads are doing something. He did the
Mhm.
midnight basketball in Roosevelt. So
Mhm.
people forget about that. So I want to mention that because Raymond is an incredible human being who passed on some years back. But he left a legacy there behind. His legacy wasn't that I smoked crack. His legacy was his community activism and his work. After he had his negative experiences, he turned the negatives to positive and influenced a whole generation of kids in Roosevelt. So that legacy I kind of carry on through my own organization with Sonia, under the same principles and models. That same legacy I take with me in every school district that I go in, about exposing our kids to more than just the neighborhood. Like you said about the train rides. If we don't take kids out of the neighborhood, their parents ain't taking them out, especially in the hood. If you come from Terrace, you're not going to Manhattan unless you're going to pick up a package, and that package is some ounces or a key or something. You're not going there for social reasons. So we're in a position to expose kids to plays, or Broadway plays at National Community College, stuff they never done before, plays at Billie Holiday Theater in Brooklyn. I took kids to so many different HBU college tours, get them out of their neighborhood to go to HBU college tours to see what life is like outside of their 8-block radius. So I've been blessed to be able to be a blessing to others. And if you're a blessing to others, although the people that you bless may not bless you, but somebody you don't even know is going to come around and bless you in return. So it's reciprocal. True. If you are a true blessing to people and it's from your heart and it's good-natured people see that. You don't know that they watching. And when you're in need, they're going to come around and bless you. And you say, wow, I didn't know you was watching. I didn't know you knew my name. Thank you. The blessings come full circle.
That's what I was saying. How I remember we went to DC. You know what I'm saying? Like we went to DC. That was an interesting trip, but for the most part, the youth were so engaged because they had never been in that area unless they had a relative there. Unless they had a relative there, they didn't know anything about district. And
we went to Frederick Douglass's house.
Right. And a lot of them didn't know who he was.
Exactly. But they got a chance to go to his house, though. They learned that day.
Yeah, got a chance to go to his house. And when we talk about the knowledge of self piece and working with the young men and women that we worked with, young boys and young girls, it was interesting how we was able to filter in an educational piece with them. How if you wanted to play, you had to have a certain amount, almost like Coach Carter, you had to have a certain amount of GPA. You needed tutoring. We had a tutoring situation for you. It was never that you was going to be around and you wasn't going to get educated.
Yeah, remember, I was Coach Carter before Coach Carter. That's just the way it is, right? We were doing home visits. We was tutoring. I was going to catch houses to tutor them just to try to get their grades up in elementary school, just to play ball, so to get them something constructive and positive to do.
And as we said, this is all volunteer. This is not, we're not talking about paid. You know what I mean? That's the reason why I really didn't touch too much on the Malverne situation, but with the Roosevelt situation, even working at Roosevelt High School, your experience in there and dealing with the youth was interesting because we would have that conversation leaving. And it was like
Roosevelt High School as a substitute teacher was an experience and a half, to say the least. Because subs get absolutely no respect. So you have to be kind of really turn up to get some respect in high school. I never forget. Remember Miss Janie West?
Yeah.
I was the 8th grade social teacher. I was her student teacher, and I'll never forget. Wu-Tang was really popping at the time, and Method Man had METHOD. Man, that was really big at the time. And the kid pressed me like I was a kid. I was like, "Excuse me." The kid actually invited me to his block after school. You know where I went right after school, right? Right to his block. Trying to scared him to death. And after I showed up on his block, he and I were cool as ever.
That's one thing about the youth. They're on a more show and prove stage. Conversation means nothing to them.
Nothing.
Show and prove everything. Education. Show and prove why I need this education. Show and prove why I need this job. If I come from 3 generations of people living in Terrace Avenue or Marcy or Pink Houses or Freeport Projects, and
A wine
and
dance,
I'm
yeah.
a wine dance, and I'm growing up in a
Belport.
project, right? I'm growing up in a project where individuals have inherited apartments. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That the apartment has been passed down, and you got 3, 4 generations in a building. Show and prove why I need to be better than this, or why, you know what I'm saying, when I can get welfare, why do I need to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining? These are the things that these youth are asking for you to show them why. And when you take time out, like you have done over the years, to show them why, because growing up, the youth need to see different individuals in different walks of life. Everyone can't be a drug dealer. Everybody can't be a football player. Everybody can't be a basketball player. Everybody can't be a rapper. Everybody can't be an actor. Everybody can't be a singer. We grew up and we say, well, you know, Eddie Murphy from our town. Oh man, him and Charlie Murphy. And Dr. J from the hood. He from Roosevelt too. Wow. We got Public Enemy. Wow. You know what I mean?
Howard
But
Stern, even Howard Stern.
yeah, even Howard Stern. We toot our horn, but what about you? How are you going to build on that legacy of great individuals?
You
And it
can't
don't
forget
necessarily
Aaron
have.
Hall from Guy.
Oh yeah, Aaron Hall. How can I forget Aaron Hall, the guy, the stuttering genius? Um, but how can I mean? What is your legacy? How are you going to be on? You know, what I'm saying, committed to that legacy? How are you going to be put in that light? And today, I want to show you how you was put in that light, because to go where you can come from, and now to be an assistant principal at Southampton, a radical thinker, an African American activist, a community awareness, a youth advocate, to becoming Southampton's assistant principal is a honor within itself. Because we're talking about Southampton, there where individuals don't look like you and I. When you have the mindset that you do of being a student of college, or a student of the great orientators of the slave theater in Brooklyn, or even a student of Professor Wise, Professor Jenkins, to take that and to run with it and still never be apologetically yourself. That's major.
You understand when I
That's
interview,
major.
I include all of my Sonier work from my organization. I'm telling them, go look at it. I include
Mhm.
the male engagement work from Uniondale over the last 12 years. Tell them, yo, go look at it. So this way you know exactly what you're getting when you hire me.
Mhm.
You know what it
Right.
is. You know what time it is up off out the gate. And I'm
Mhm.
fortunate to be in a situation where they want that in Southampton. Unfortunately, my last school district, which will remain nameless because they don't need no light, they didn't want that. And they're all black. I've been there for 12 years. It's like pulling teeth. And they say they
Right.
want knowledge of self. They say they want consciousness and culture, but they don't live it at all. I'm in Southampton where houses go for $175 million. Houses are selling for $80 million. I can't even fathom those numbers for a house that you only live in 3 months out of the year. I'm in a community, but the kids who go to school there are not those who are living in those $80 million houses. Those are the ones who are taking care of the property of those houses and taking care of those wealthy people for those 3 months. So the kids that I'm servicing now, the creator put me in this environment for a reason, because the Caucasian ones, the Native American Shinnecock ones, the African Americans, the Asians, the Spanish speaking, they are in a crisis to some of them where they need to see somebody like me in position of authority, who dresses well, who speaks well, who presents himself well, because now it's changing the mindset of what they're so accustomed to see on TV of us in a different light. And unfortunately, with these movies and the music portraying us in a different light, they get to touch and feel a brother who's upright, who don't bend, who don't buck dance, who don't shuffle, standing firm and tall. And the teachers as well out there get a chance to see a black man in a position of leadership, which is mind-blowing, who's not unapologetically black. But if you can change that mindset, you might head off the next crazy little kid coming up because they haven't been exposed to us, who becomes a cop, and because of the fear factor, instead of having a conversation with you, quick to pull out his ratchet to do something to you. So if you create that level of communication and relationship, it may change their mindset. Well, they all ain't like that, like what I see on TV. So my goal is to be a change agent out there, to create and expose them to my world as well as me integrating into their world. So when I expose them to my world, I'm taking them out of that environment and going to stuff that is radically. One student asked me already, we need to have some HBCUs come here. I said, no doubt. It's going to happen. Because HBCUs never went out there before, apparently, because they never were invited. So for those who watch and don't know what is historically black colleges and universities. So we're going to have them come out as well. And we're going to have different cultural things happening all throughout the year. And it's a beautiful thing to have a principal who's only 43 years old, Caucasian, who's embracing this. And I'm coming from a former environment where the principal went to school there, grew up there, went to college there, came back, was a teacher, assistant principal, night school principal, and principal, says he's Nation of Gods and Earth, but he's far from it in his actions.
Oh,
He
wow.
professed to be a student of the Nation of Gods and Earth, but he's far from it in his action. He's more of an 85er. He's a true living 85er, perpetrating fraud. And he has a demonic spirit, and he grew up there. He's talk a good game, but he doesn't live it. The kids see it, and everybody sees it. You don't live it. And now you're in a position of power. Instead of you bringing people together, you're dividing people, just like an 85er. You're dividing people. And instead of creating an environment that is welcoming for our babies and culturally responsive, you're dividing people. So that's why I'm in Southampton, because you get to a point where enough is enough. Minister Farrakhan used to always say, you got to love your people, and when you're in leadership, more than they hate you. Because at the end of the day in leadership, they're looking to find some chink in your armor. So when something goes wrong, they're going to say the N-word couldn't handle it anyway. Meanwhile, while everything is good, oh yeah, keep going, everything is good, everything is great. One thing happened, they turn on you so fast and make your head spin. And couldn't handle it anyway. So what happened to all that support? You got to be able to support one another when we're doing well and when we're not. Because when we're not doing well, it's an opportunity for that person to learn and to correct those behaviors so he can grow or she can grow. And we can grow as a community. But we don't get second chances. We need to create a healthy environment. Where I'm at now, brother, there's situations that have occurred. The way they go about addressing it is not from a criminal mindset. Oh, well, he needs counseling. Oh, no problem. He punched him in the face. He needs to go ISS and he needs to skip a game or two. Well, the previous environment, you hit somebody in the face, 5-day suspension, boom, no questions asked. Out there, they're just kids. They make mistakes. Our environment, call the police. Lock them up. Different mindset. So I'm like, what are we doing to our kids?
And I have like a twofold question for you. How do you feel about teaching African American history on the high school or the junior high school level, or starting from the junior high school level to the high school level? Also, how do you feel about the difference in the educational district? Because in our community, it's the prison pipeline. In the Southampton community, it don't sound the same. So how do you see that there's a difference between those? And what do you think about teaching African American history for our young brothers and sisters in the middle school to the high school?
The teaching is when you haven't been exposed to it, you dismiss it. So my first year teaching ever at UB, I started off with something as simple as affirmations. Each student had to state a positive affirmation about themselves. And that was one of the hardest things in the world for them to do, to find something positive about themselves to say. So I would change it up and say, well, could you say something positive about the person next to you or somebody else in the class? And they would do it. But then eventually they got enough courage, because in our community, everything is about the dozen, snapping, cutting, they call it now, and they keep changing the terminology, but it's still the same thing as snapping. So when you're so used to telling jokes
down here they call it Jones.
Your nose, your ears, your this, your that, you create a phobia that the person grows up with and have self-conscious of that. So now if they get a little money, they want to change their nose, they want to change the cheekbones, they want to change their behind, because they got snapped on all the time. So when you start with the mind, reprogramming of the mind, with the concept of affirmations, daily affirmations about the knowledge of self. And I also say, yo, you're a king, you're a queen, you could do this, you're a mathematician, you're this. So you got to speak life into them. And to the point where they see that you're consistently speaking life in them, they start speaking life into themselves. So once you get that self-esteem issue under control, and then you can go to historical perspective. When I got to high school, and Malverne was the first time, well, matter of fact, it was at Hempstead High School, through the STAR program. Oh man, I was in heaven, because I had the green light to modify the curriculum as I saw fit, to break it down to where I knew our kids could understand it. So we talked about Hannibal. He was like, okay, let's go get some books on Hannibal. This is what Hannibal looks like. If you notice in history class, they never talk about ethnicity of Hannibal. They never talk about he's an African from Carthage. They just say Carthage. They want you to assume that everybody knows what Carthage is. No, they do that on purpose. They don't want you to know. And that when you look at history, they talk about Egypt. They always separate Egypt from Africa.
Right.
Not by accident. Excuse me. It's by design. So now I'm in a position where I could teach. You know, I went to Egypt with Dr. Ben in '97. I spent 2 weeks with Dr. Ben and Minoko Mushidi over there. So I was in the pyramids myself. I saw it myself, hieroglyphics and the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens. I didn't read a book for that. I was there with the man who wrote the book. So that from that perspective, when I came back with that, not students who still like, yo, thank you, Mr. Saunders, you changed my life. Just on the strength, he said, your trip to Egypt was like my trip. I got a lot of little disciples out there who are doing great things and are really conscious, socially, politically, and culturally. I've got disciples out there who, because of me, are now teachers on Long Island, Black men who are teachers on Long Island. So I'm thankful for my career. I'm thankful for the Creator putting me in a position to impact the lives of our children and other children as that. So when you deal with the teaching factor, when I got to Malverne, as you know, was a little tiny bit more integrated. They were receptive because they had what is called the Carter G. Woodson Black Studies Council. Once they saw I was an African history major in college, I didn't ask them for the job. They said, yo, we want you to run this club. And I was like, oh, man, I hit the jackpot. They did a Martin Luther King Day celebration that I could design the way I wanted to. Because it was an after-school club, I could bring in, I remember the Eyes on the Prize videos? We used to watch the Eyes on the Prize videos, every last one of them. So we were starting to build that and create that environment. So it was just a beautiful thing. And then when I got to Hempstead High School, same thing. Then when I got to Hempstead Middle School, I created what's called Panther. The other persuaded teachers didn't like that title, but I didn't care, because we were really based upon, we used the Black Panther from the Black Panther Party imagery. All the imagery was based upon the Panther Party. And it was a beautiful thing being able to teach them about themselves and giving them the confidence to say, yo, I am somebody. I'm not just a slave. My history doesn't just start with slavery. It put them in a position of power, a position of growth and development, saying, I can do this. I can be something in this world. I can have an impact. And a lot of them took heed to that and did extremely well. Some didn't.
Got a question. I'm hearing everything what you're saying, and it's beautiful. My question was this: it takes me back to even my timeline in school. When we talk about our teachings coming up, mostly everything was always taught to us about our Black history. Everything started from slavery, and then it ends at that time with Martin Luther King and the I Have a Dream speech. But there's never been no curriculum mentioning of a Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, peace be and blessing upon him, Malcolm X. Nothing was really educated towards them. Everything was a negative impact. Oh, we don't do that because of this, because of that. So it was like it gives a one-sided effect of our history instead of something that we should have culcated within all aspects to include our African studies or ancient Kemet and all that too. Because I was over there myself for about a year. I remember being there for a year in my military travels and doing all that my research over there. So how important is it when you do your curriculum to a lot of the younger African men and women, our children, growing up pre-K, kindergarten, or what, to levels, to really instill our stories in them in the light and right way, so that they have a better understanding of just what the normal standard curriculum was for us as growing up.
Well, right now there's a movement across the country called culturally responsive education. And that culturally responsive education is not just limited to us, our Black brothers and sisters. The 1619 Project, which was produced by, I forgot the name of the newspaper outlet, New York Times, did the 1619 Project. So the radical Caucasians are very upset because now a lot of the truth that you're referring to is starting to be exposed. And now the pressure as a result of George Floyd and the amount of social pressure that's been put forth, now they have to do it because of the culturally responsive education. And that is extremely important, not just for us having to understand. See, the problem is a lot of us are starting to get some enlightenment, but that enlightenment is only in our community. Caucasians, Asians, everybody in America need to know our greatness of the inventions. You can't use this cell phone without knowing that it was created by an original man. You can't, the filament in your light bulb that you cut on every day, the stop sign that you stop at Carter G. Woodson, the design of Washington, D.C., Benjamin Banneker, from memory. They lost the plans. So from memory, the original Statue of Liberty was from the French, was originally designed to be a Black woman. So all this history has to be out there, because right now, the reason why we are perceived as second class or less than, because the white boy and the Black girl and the Black boy was taught the same lies. So until the curriculum changes in school, in my personal opinion, the system designed to keep you oppressed is not going to liberate you. So as a parent, it is my responsibility to enlighten my children. But if we can get some things in the school, like, for example, back in the day through the liberation movement, the 70s and the late 60s, they forced colleges that create the Black Studies program. I went to Stony Brook. I was in the Black Studies program. It was a program. It never became, what do they call it? Every year they had to renew it. It didn't become just an accredited course. I got a degree in it, but it wasn't, Every year you had to lobby. We staged a protest every year just to show the demand. Say that again? Say that again?
Elective course. An elective course.
Yeah. Yep. I have a friend who works in another Long Island school district. They have an African American course. Guess what? African history course, especially design. Most of the kids are Caucasian. The Black kids don't want to take it because they don't know the value of it. See, when we grew up, the music that we listened to was reflective of the movement. The songs that we listened to was reflective of the civil rights movement or the Black Power movement. Yeah, artists were creative in taking the struggle and putting it in the words and music. It was influential, so it brought you to a level of consciousness. John and I grew up during Public Enemy days, Dave from Roosevelt. That level of KRS-One, Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, X-Clan, you name it, just keep going. So when you listen to that music, first time I heard about Malcolm X really was Chuck D. Farrakhan. Farrakhan is a prophet I think you ought to listen to. What he can say to you? What are you going to do? I'm like, who's this Farrakhan guy? So I started to look him up. I said, okay, I can rock with this. So it came through the music. If you notice the music now, all of the police killings and the social unrest, the music still does not reflect the activism. If you notice that, the music of now does not reflect the activism, which is mind-boggling to me, because throughout history, the music always reflected Curtis Mayfield, always reflected the activism. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, always reflected the activism. Stevie Wonder, Pick One, always reflected the activism. It stopped because the powers that be realized they weaponized hip hop. They weaponized it. They took the social consciousness out of it and inserted the foolery, the drill music coming out of Chicago's #1 thing. It's so impactful even in Ghana. They got the drill scene in Ghana where cats is being bodied over the foolishness because they realized how to weaponize the music. Black Ice, a former comedian, said that some of the most powerful things. He said music is the only thing more powerful than drugs because it doesn't have to go into your veins. It goes right into your soul. It bypasses going into your veins and hit your spirit. Music can make you feel good, make you feel bad, get you excited, get you amped up. You want to catch a body, they get high, and they listen to something crazy, listen to some Annie Up, and they go out and do what they do. They get hyped off it. The corporate America realized how to use it as a weapon, give these young boys extreme amounts of money that they never seen before to go out to businesses. If you notice, white folks buy the hip hop. We never really bought hip hop. If you got a great beard like me, you go back to Mr. Magic, you have to hit record and play. If you want to get the song, hit record and play. You have to record it yourself. Nowadays they got the digital realm. So you dealing with a whole different thought process of having access to this music. The record companies are practically dead. So now that we're in power and charge to put out our own content, we're still putting out slave mentality content. And we're the ones in charge. Some of the movies that are reflective out there, we're the ones producing it, but we're still producing the same kind of entertainment the slave master produced. It's mind-boggling to me. So until we get out of that thought process, that negative stinking thinking, we got to do something better. I brought Khalid Abdul Muhammad to Stony Brook twice. The first time was very empowering. They ended up beginning that we had DEA agents on the roof. They put in airport scanners for our guests coming in. We had police everywhere, and he ripped it down. And as my going away present, right before I graduated, we brought it back again. And he said he would debate any 12 scholars at any time. We put the flyers all over campus. Nobody took him up on it. But he came back and he ripped it down again. So I'm coming from a school of thought of just the activism of pushing the envelope. And I don't see that hunger in our young people like it was before, because a lot of our young people, although they're going through more challenging times and they're more distracted because of devices and the computer and everything else, I think that's one of the biggest deficits to our community is the distraction. And the things that our parents are able to filter and keep us away from, like if our parents had a Red Fox album, they had to hide it. A Richard Pryor album, they ain't let you listen to that, they had to hide it. Now, pornography, you had a block on it, right? No, now you get whatever you want on your phone. There's no block. Little Nas X is mainstream, got national commercials. I'm like, come on. So there's a movement to feminize. That's a whole nother topic. But there's a clear, conscious movement to feminize our community. Not everybody else's community, ours. Because if you notice, our black celebrities are the only ones you see in these dresses consistently. The only ones that you see really sashaying to the extreme consistency. Not saying that every other community doesn't do that, but I'm saying that the emphasis is on us for some reason. That is very clear that we are targeted for that thought process. Now, granted, to each his own. I'm an educator, so I embrace all of my students. What you do in the privacy of your bedroom is your business, not my business. But what I'm saying is when it's overwhelmingly promoted and pushed, I'm concerned about that because I have a young boy, a young son. So that thought process continually pushed down your throat. I watched Dave Chappelle's special, and he's fearless and he's going at it hard body. But he can. He's on a different. What could you do to me? I'm beyond rich. I'm beyond successful. What could you do to me? I can say what I want. We all have that luxury of being able to say what you want.
Now, my question is, when we talk about slaves, because this is something I didn't know anything about, and I learned in these later years that there were different kinds of slaves, right? That there were different kinds of slaves, and I'm not talking about house Negro and field Negro. I'm not talking about that slave because we was all taught that he's either a house Negro or he's a field Negro. But we was never taught about urban slaves and plantation slaves. Urban slaves were tradesmen who bought their freedom, who bought their family freedom, who owned businesses. See, yes, slavery is an atrocity to any race of people who lived through it. But there also have been individuals that they would never teach you that during Reconstruction and all the above were senators, congressmen, mayors, and different aspects. To me, this is the reason why we need African American history to begin in middle school. Because you have to know it's more than just Malcolm and Martin and Rosa Parks. You have to know it's more than just Nat Turner. Matter of fact, me and my wife, me and her went to Wilmington. There is an actual urban slave museum in Wilmington. And it deals with not too far from the Underground Railroad exhibits and stuff that they have in Wilmington, North Carolina. The building looks like a modern day apartment building today.
Mm.
The way it looks, the way it's built, the way it's structured, everything looks like a modern day apartment building. Or a quote unquote, matter of fact, I give you the prime, it looks like one of the apartments on the Bedell side of Terrace. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not saying that the Bedell side of Terrace is nice looking or anything, but that's what it looked like. That's where the urban slaves lived. They would leave there, go, become whatever job they had at the time, whether it was seamstress or whatever trade that they had during that period of time, they would go do it. They would split the money with the master, pay their free for their freedom, then turn around and buy their families freedom and other members freedom. How do people understand like the first black town during slavery? When you're looking at different aspects. So my question is the knowledge of self piece. How do you feel about it actually being missing in our own community and that is being received in others' communities? Because
Well,
like you said, like we was growing up, it was we had pride with it. Everybody has some form of knowledge of self, whether you was a 5% nation of gods and earth, whether you was Zulu Nation, whether you was in the Nation of Islam, whether you was something.
Ansars,
the red, black, and green movement. You were something.
Yeah.
There was some pride.
The Moors with the fezzes.
Yeah, the Moors, all of them. I remember back in the 80s, the Bill Cipher years, how we would stand in unity because of Howard Beach. We're not part of the Howard Beach community, but we stood as a people against that. You know what I'm saying? So that came with having knowledge of self. That made us want to have pride in our relationship and with each other and then within ourselves. So basically what I'm asking is, how do you feel like I said, the knowledge of self piece not being taught or pushed anymore in the black community?
Well, a lot of us feel like we've arrived, we've overcome. We got the car in the driveway, we got the white picket fence, we got the house. Our individual families are good. Okay, I don't care about anybody else. We become very selfish in our thought process. The God is shaking his head, but from my reality, a lot of cats, they got the job, they got the white picket fence, they got the degree, the first generation, by the way, to get their degree, and they're comfortable. We made it, but we didn't make it because the impact that exists outside of your community is astronomical. We grew up with the phrase "knowledge yourself to better yourself." With that knowledge of self, we had another phrase: "He ain't heavy, he's my brother." Lifting as you climb. Marcus Garvey. We had all these catchphrases. Remember, they used to be on the T-shirts. We walk around with billboards of celebrating knowledge of self. What happened to all that? So again, I say publicly that it's not the school's responsibility. That's why I mentioned the I Am Corporation. Let's not forget the school. We're gonna do for self. We're gonna start our own thing. We're gonna lobby the state to get this house. We're gonna shake the politicians down to give us some funding and training to do the trade schools in this house. We're gonna shake them down and provide rooms in the house for those kids who have no place to go. They fought the system and won. These are just a former crackhead and his girl. They did it. They were successful fighting the system and winning. They found loopholes in the laws where they got the house for free. So they did the due diligence, and they were adamant about doing something for the community. That passion, that love, that desire was there, and it was clear. And I salute them for that all these years later, because they put me on, a little 20-year-old coming out, still in college, as the leader of their camp. They trusted me to lead the camp and come up with ideas and mantras. I remember one year we had all the kids, we used to try to spice it up. That year, now I said, "Whose world is this? The world is yours." So we used to have them rock that out in the morning times. And one row said, "Whose world is this?" The other group would say, "The world is yours." And next one, "It's mine, it's mine." That processing was building in their brains at an early age, 5, 6, 7 years old. So that knowledge of self component is reason why I could blow your head off and don't even think twice about it. Because now it's no different what the military did with the Japanese. "Oh, you're a guap," or "You're this," or "You're that." And now with the blood, say, you're a crab, or "You are this or that." So if I take your name away and not identify you as, "Oh, that's Johnny who I grew up with," and now you're a crab, or "You're a slob," okay, now you're not anything of human. You're not human to me anymore. So now I could dispose you like I would dispose of something that's not human, because there's the relationship. Now I can grow up with you from babies. And now because you picked a different side, and I could change the name, and so it'll take away some emotions from it. So, okay, he's no longer Johnny who was in my 3rd grade class. He's a slob, or he's a crab, or he's a this, he's a that. So we got to get to, or a chink, as they used to call him. So when they dehumanize you to that point, and when you could take him out, because you really take it out yourself. You see what you dislike in you, and you don't want to hurt yourself, so you're gonna hurt somebody else, because your self-esteem, your foundation is all shaky. So until you have that self-foundation, that self-stability, it's gonna be a challenge. And what frustrates me a lot is the brothers who walk away from their children. Now, granted, some baby mamas are a nightmare, but you chose that chick probably was a nightmare before you lay down. So when you have that seed, man, you got to continue to fight. Like, I commend you for your struggles with my godson's mom, and you take it on that leadership role of saying, "Yo, the God is coming with me. Whatever, up or down, wherever it goes, he's gonna be with his dad. Good times, bad times, ugly times. He's gonna ride it out with me." And you did that. And that's powerful to me, because you did that, and your son got a chance to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. But he was with his dad, who taught him how to be a man, who never been locked up, never going through the system, went to college, played ball, doing his thing, living his life. That was because he had a firm hand, and you didn't hide anything from him either. He saw the good, bad, and the ugly. But he knew Daddy loved him at all times. How many of us can say, "Oh, Daddy loved me, Daddy was there for me, Daddy sacrificed, Daddy didn't hide"? So that family foundation, man, we got to start with baby steps. The baby steps is, let's work on our house, our kids, our nieces and nephews and so forth, who may not have dads. Let's step up and step in and fill that gap and show them the right way to do things. Because when you know the deal, when the cats go out and get involved in these gangs, the gang's gonna ride out for you. At least you think they are. You think they love you. You think they're gonna ride for you, until you go up north and you expect them to send you some kites, and you're not getting those kites. You think they're sending you some bread, you're not getting that bread either. You say, "Wait a minute, I thought that was your man, ride or die for the life to the grave." What happened? You on your own up north. So you got to be in a position where we got to start building on the value of the basic fundamental structure of family. If you look at scripture, God didn't create no church. First thing he created was the family structure. Regardless of what you believe, the fictional concept of Adam and Eve and the birth of the kids. That's the first foundation is life. If you look at the Ankh symbol is a symbol of life. The woman's ovaries, shaft, children. Symbol of life. So until we start building the fundamental foundations of the values of mother, father, children, character, integrity matters, character matters. Being able to apologize and say, yo, baby, I'm 50 years old. I made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm here to try to correct it now. Yeah, when I punch you in the face for turning over the milk, that wasn't the right way of dealing with it. I was abusive. I don't want you to be the same way. But we got too much pride and to not acknowledge the fact that the ways of old are not the ways of the present. Because the slave master brutalized us, we would brutalize our own children, hoping that by us doing it, the man won't do it. Hell, you remember the days getting beat with you had to pick your own switch off the tree, or you get beat with an extension cord or a broom or whatever they can find. That's brutality, but in their mind, that's love because that's what they were accustomed to. My mom had bruises on her arm from when she was a kid. My great grandmother would hit her with whatever she could find. My mother said she had the best aim in the world. She could have been a baseball pitcher. So you dealing with that mindset, bro. And think about that crack generation. Changed the game for our community forever. We never recovered from that, bro. That really destroyed the fundamental structure of our family along with welfare. Because when he was on welfare back in the day, they took the man out of the house. You couldn't be in the house and receive benefits. Daddy had to sneak in and sneak out. And daddy wanted to be there. But financially, he wasn't rocking like that. So now for you to have a roof over your head, he had to step out. Systematic continuation of the slave process, but he got slick with it. When you take the man, watch Claudine. They give a great example of what that looks like. The old school movie Claudine shows you a great example of what that looks like. So we got to have the thought process of, yo, we got to find out a way to bring the family back together again. Now, granted, that's not an end-all that fix-all because a child has his or her own mind. But the good book says, train up a child the way he should go. When he's old, he won't depart from it. Our kids will stray, but if they have a foundation, they have something to come back to. No matter how great of a parent you may be, these babies have their own thought, their own mind. And they're going to be influenced to do what they do. But as long as you know you did everything in your power to provide the best quality of life for them without enabling them or coddling them to the nth degree, you got to hold them accountable. And you got to let them know the words "I love you" I didn't hear growing up. Raise your hand if you heard "I love you" growing up. I didn't. Now I knew my mama loved me. I knew my grandmother loved me to death. But those words didn't come out of her mouth till I got to college. And she started writing me letters, "Baby, I love you." I say, "Oh wow." My mom, that lady I used to hear her say "I love you" to her church folk. And I used to feel a certain kind of way. Like, wait a minute, why I don't hear that? Until I called her on it, then it started becoming a little more frequent. But I got married for the first time, and my wife came from a family of "I love yous." It was hard for me to say it because I never heard it. So it was hard for me to say. I said, "Yo, the lights on, right? Food in the refrigerator, right? You take care, right? You got clothes in your back, car to drive. I love you."
That's how you know I love
you. The provider factor is how we show love. The words, our kids need to hear it because I know I needed to hear it. Our kids need to hear it. I know I make sure I say it every day to my son and my daughter. And I probably still don't say it enough to my wife because she needs to hear it.
Touching on that, getting to the point where we're saying the affectionate part of doing what we dealt with growing up in our community. We didn't hear it. There was no way to hear it. Oh, you need some money? You want to go to the movies? Here. You got some food? You got something to eat? Or I'm gonna make a way for you to get something to eat? Or anything that came with the substance. Matter of fact, I'm here with you, ain't I? I'm here with you because I could be at Friday's bar tonight, or I could be at 21 North, or I could be, you know what I'm saying, at Syncopated Lounge.
A red spot.
You know,
I forgot what red spot name. Yeah.
yeah. You know, so those were the whole. Didn't I come in your game? Yeah, the say la vie. Hold up. The biggest thing. Didn't I come to your game? Didn't I come to your game? Wasn't I sitting there? I could have been somewhere else, but I was right there at your game.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't see you. Like Lisa was talking. Like I didn't see my father until it was football season. Like every other section, like basketball season, baseball season, summer school, nothing. Football season came, you couldn't beat him to the field. He was on the field before we were. We were playing. You know what I'm saying? And then after the game, and this will make you laugh. It's sad and it's true. Me and Keith wanted to go to the movies. And I think that night we were supposed to get your cousin's car, and we was having a hard time getting the car. And my father was at the house because it was after a game. He came by. You want the car? Well, you take the car. Y'all can have the car. Go get you a bunch of girls, park the car around the house, and you can have as much sex as you want to with them in the car behind the house. This was his thought process of showing me love. He came around football season. This is the conversation he had with not just me, he had with Keith. And it used to be funny because I would tell individuals that type of dialogue and nobody would believe me. I think I would have to say, yo, Keith, what did he say? What did he say?
I was there. He offered me the keys. I was like, no, thank you.
You know, but I think that the biggest thing when it come down to parenthood for myself, and I think if I might be speaking for you, was to give our children something that we didn't have, and that was fathers. That was dads. We always talk about giving our children something that we never had. Yeah, we grew up in hard times. We was on the free cheese line. We know what it is to be in the store trying to wait on everybody to leave out so we could pull out the book of food stamps. You know what I mean?
I hated that, for the record. I hated that.
We all did. So, but what made it even worse was we didn't have that male figure in the home. Like, we knew what a male figure in the home was because around the corner from you was Mr. Ruel Tower, who was a great dad, at least from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Arthur Barnes' family, he was a great dad. You know what I'm saying? That's from the outside looking in, not knowing what it is to have a father there to guide you. We had mothers, and they kept us in baseball, football, basketball, something constructive around male role models. So it took a Mr. Robinson or Mr. Watson or Mr. Dennis Brown, Mr. Moore, Mr. Hunter, to be
Mr.
other
Simpson,
figures for us in the community with no father figures. Yeah, Mr. Simpson,
Mr. Dudley,
Don Cromell, Sheldon
the
Patton,
legend Don,
Mr. Dudley. Yeah, Don Cromell. It took these individuals. So I always think about giving my children something I never had. And that was a full-time father and a full-time dad. Whether or not I'm in the home physically, I'm in the home, regardless to whom or what. I make cause and effect there. My presence is felt there because I'm involved there. I've always been involved. when I had my oldest daughter living with us when she was young. Me and her mother went our separate ways, but I never stopped being a dad. When my son was born, that was one of the most impactful moments in my life because at that point, I'm looking at myself. Not saying that having a daughter wasn't a blessing, but I'm looking at a young man that looks like me, that's just like me, that I got to guide, and I know what he's going to face. A young girl, she's going to get married and she's going to be taken care of by her husband, but I have to get him ready to be one. I have to make sure that he grows up successful enough where he don't have to fall victim to the drugs, to the gang violence, to none of the social ills that we went through. I mean, like, and I won't say my son is the greatest son in the world because all of them go through things. All of them have they bumps and bruises. But I can say that he walks with his own beat. He's his own man. He walks with his heads up high, with his heads up high. He stands on whatever decision that he makes because he's accountable for that. And that's one thing that I look at when it comes down to us as men when we're dealing with parenthood. No, I'm not going to sit up here and say like every relationship is going to be the greatest relationship, but the child didn't ask to be here. So whether or not you want to, whether or not you want to be with the woman, see, your relationship with your child has nothing to do with the mother. That's two different individuals. And even women need to hear this too. The relationship with a child has nothing to do with the father. It has something to do with the child. The child needs to see that he has a mother and a father, both loving him and having his best interest at heart, or her best interest at heart. Majority of individuals who have children base their relationship with their children on the relationship they have with the parent. If the dude ain't with the mother no more, he don't deal with the child. And the only way he deal with the child is he's with the mother. Same thing with the woman. The man can't see his child unless I and him are together, or I dictate who and what is going on with the child. You know what I mean? And that means that he has to be involved with me to be involved with the child. So our community is sick mentally when it comes down to that. We have we have the slave mind of dysfunction because when you look at it, when a child is born in slavery, he's he's not really a part of his family. He don't get the nurturing from his mother like he should because once the baby is big enough to walk around, they being used as a tool. They're being used as a tool. The mother is not nursing the slave baby. She's nursing the slave master's child. The same milk that was needed for her child, she's giving it to the devil's child. So we're looking at years. The father, especially if you're on a breeding plantation, the father is non-existent. It's easy for a man to walk away because he was never put in a situation where he had to handle responsibility for real. When you're looking at 30, 40 years, 50 years, whereas the black man was actually an effective component in the black family since we've been here in the wilderness of North America. Think about slavery and the effects of it. You have 40, 50 years like post-slavery, whereas a man got a husband, he's a husband and he has a whole family. He's doing what he can to take care of his family. Then 1965 to 1970, when we're dealing with the COINTELPRO, and they breaking down saying, okay, how do we destroy the black Messiah? You destroy the black Messiah by destroying the black family. Okay, now you're taking away the jobs from the black man. He can't work and provide. So what happens is he goes and tell his wife, well, if you get social services, They will help. Okay, if you get social services, you got to leave. So the having that strong man in the home is done. Once she does that, he's done. You can't be here. You can't be in low income housing. You can't receive no welfare. You can't receive no Section 8, no food stamps, no anything. But you're going to have to put him on child support. Now we know as black men, how hard it is to sustain an income. Then you're already giving to your child with what you have. Then they turn around and put you in court and take and garnish your check and take more from you and don't even give 20% of the child support that they take from you to your child.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So when we're talking about the dysfunction and destruction of the original people, we have to really dig into it and see why you're needed in the community, why I'm needed in the community, why Kay is needed in the community. Because we come from a level of slave mentality that formed a dysfunction with the black people in our community. Nobody never sat back and said, how long has it honestly been to say the black man is the foundation of his family? When we talk about families, we never discuss the father being first. The father is supposed to be what? The burden bearer of his family. The father is supposed to be, quote unquote, the provider. Why is he the one spoke about second? The first thing they say is mother and father, right? They don't never say father and mother. See, it's dealing with the science of role reversal, put in a situation where you put all the burden on the woman, now she becomes hardened. You take all the burden off the man, now he's soft. Now it's easy to be infantilized. It's easy for him to take on a role of a sensitive individual because you took the role away from him that he's supposed to be a part of. We sit and we look at things and we say, how hard is it to really be a man in the black community? It is when you have to fight for your place in your own relationship. You have to fight for your place in your own community. You have to fight for your place, what I'm saying, in the workforce. You have to fight for you just have to fight constantly. We Once you wake up and you put your feet on the floor, you're fighting the devil from that point on, the mentality and the people. Why do you think that a black man has high blood pressure or anxiety or stressed out or having heart attacks and strokes? It's not necessarily the food, it's what you're up against. Your life expectancy is way shorter than your wife's, is way shorter than your girlfriend's, is way shorter than any other counterpart, because you are made to be looked at in a secondary fashion in your own relationship. It used to be when you got married, there was no question or not whether your wife was going to take your last name. There was no question. That wasn't even in the question. There was no such thing as hyphenating your last name. Hyphenate. No, that wasn't it. And the orientation, if I could even say in the religious canton, is God, man, woman, and child. That is the umbrella and the statue and way things are supposed to go. But today's time is God, woman, because she's not married to her husband, she's married to Jesus. So it's God, then the woman, then the child, then man. Man is last on the totem pole. You think for one instant that a man don't need to know that he's being loved? I used to have conversations with your mom, and this is a conversation that I was grateful to have before she returned to that. And I, the conversations we used to have was deep because she knew mentally I was running. I think it's a conversation we had. Mentally, I was running in my mind, whereas I can get all types of relationships, be in all types of relationships, but sustaining them, I couldn't, because mentally I wasn't there. That wasn't where it was at for me, because I knew nothing about love. I knew everything about everything else. How to get a female, you know what I'm saying, what it was to bag them, whatever, you know what I'm saying, to knock boots with them, whatever. But to actually sustain that, I had no knowledge of, because I never really seen a functioning relationship before. So as I gotten older, I understand a lot better. No longer running. I'm at peace. I'm no longer in a situation where I feel I got to be aggressive. I have nothing to prove to no one. That's where I'm at in life. I do what I do for the babies in our community. And that's from down here in Maryland. I still am making cause and effect, positive cause and effects in the Roosevelt, Long Island community. And they Rise and Star program or they PAL programs. I'm still involved, because if not, then how will I leave a legacy for them? I owe them. I set the tone from which they walk today. I was part of that problem that caused what we see today. So I have to do my duty to try to reverse the polarity and change the things that are going on by changing me and changing the things that those kids see in that community. So again, to you, brother Keith, brother Saunders, well, I call you X. You know what I mean? This is my show, so I'm gonna be as professional as I want to be on here. And I've always called you X, brother, but keep X. And it has nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying, anything else. It's just what it was, because of your spirit of colleague that was in you. You know what I mean?
You know, that came from Zaire.
Yeah, my man Zaire. I wonder how Zaire doing, man. That was my man.
He's good. I spoke to him this week.
Okay. When you speak to Zaire, tell him I said peace. And
yes, sir.
It was interesting. I would tell people, like, I used to live at Stony Brook University, right? It's funny. I lived at Stony Brook while you were going to Stony Brook. I think we was roommates at one because I was always there.
Yeah, my mom dropped you off a few times, hung out the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And you came back. What's the god name you came? We had the Cutlass. You brought up two of the brothers.
Kasim
For what's the name? Video Music Box.
Yeah. Kasim and them came with me out there. But we're speaking of a level of consciousness. How do you see the level of consciousness being changed with the gang culture coming into our communities?
The gang culture, from my observation, they don't have really a system of order and structure whatsoever. They don't even respect, from my personal experience, being around a lot of Bloods and Crips, MS, 18th Street. They don't even really respect the older OGs in the communities, and that's sad that you don't respect the OGs in your same organization. So when you have a lawlessness, which in my opinion really stimulated from the crack era, of everybody trying to get money for themselves, and the concept of team and old big meats mentality is gone about everybody eat. Everybody's not eating, so it got to the point where I want this. And then when you see infighting within the organization of each other, it's like you can't even get criminal stuff together. You can't even organize yourself in that body.
I tell you,
organize yourself in society. With fraternities and sororities, they have their internal conflicts, and you're supposed to be, in my opinion, fraternity and sorority mentality is not much different than the street mentality at times with different functions. So we got to get back to that concept of he's not heavy, he's my brother. That concept of lifting as we climb. How can we come together and collaborate? Because we are only as strong as our weakest link. So if you're in the same organization, we should be trying to build businesses and encourage one another and pool our resources. But in our community, the biggest issue that come forth is trust. We have a difficulty trusting one another because we always think somebody's out for the hustle. Because unfortunately, based upon our experiences, we've been hustled. But in spite of that, I still look for Black business owners when I got different projects to do. Because if I don't, think about it. If I go to a ShopRite, for example, and ShopRite, I saw a roach. What am I going to do most likely, Black folk? Go to another ShopRite. But if that was a Black-owned business, I'm not going no more Black-owned businesses. They had one roach in ShopRite. I'm not going no more. Throw your hands up. I'm not going no more. We got to get out of that mindset. Now, granted, business people are just that. Some are good business people, some are not. Some cats are going to try to hustle you and do mediocre work. Some people are not. So it's a bit. That's a roll of the dice that you take with any business.
Right.
But we got to give our people a shot, man. I gave a young boy a shot when I bought my house to renovate the project upstairs. He did a very mediocre job. I had to get on him verbally, really get at him to the point where he had integrity. He said, "Yo, I'm going to give you more than half your money back. I'm going to send somebody else to do the job better." So he and I are cool to this day because he had integrity to say, "Okay, I took on more than I can handle. Let me make this right with you so we could be good going forward." Now, I can respect that because he acknowledged that, I screwed up. I got the pictures to prove it. I screwed up. It's not what you wanted. Let me bring somebody in to clean up what I messed up and haggle the money for. That's business. That's how you build relationships with people. And as being the older guy, I was like, okay, I understand he's young and he's trying to develop a business, and I'm trying to school him on customer service and how things go so I can be a part of his legacy. So as when he becomes extremely successful, he can go back and remember, I remember Mr. Saunders pulled my coat about the level of excellence that he's expecting because he's a consumer. And now in this society living, this is a great time to be Black in America because everybody want to give you a shot now because of all of the videos. They can't deny it. They can't deny all the videos that they're seeing of the way we've been treated. We've been telling them that for centuries. And now the liberal Caucasians are willing to give you a shot, and everybody's willing to give you a shot. And if you have quality business practices, you can thrive right now. If you have a business plan, you have a vision, you can really make some great things happen because everybody, if you notice the NBA and different banks, you see the commercials, we dedicate this amount to small businesses, this amount to Black businesses, everything's Black. So now how are we taking advantage of that? Because I'm kicking myself in the rear end because I haven't developed a business plan myself. I don't only talk about me. Because see, I'm just going to be honest. Sometimes when you're on these jobs for so long, you lose the hunger because you get comfortable. You got a check, you got life insurance, health insurance, you got a roof over your family's taken care of, and you get to a certain age because of your family, you don't want to take any risks. I had a rude awakening in my last job where after being there for 12 years, they started coming for my job. A Black man, the so-called 5% with the 7 tattoos started coming for me. I was like, whoa, during the pandemic, it woke me up from my reality of you got too comfortable. You got to do something for yourself because right now he has the authority to change the trajectory of your life. I looked at it he's trying to take food out of the mouths of my kids and my wife. So I'm like, okay, before I strangle this dude, I got to get out of here. But because of him, he motivated me to really get back into my reading, get back into developing ideas and plans and structures. One day I want to do what you guys are doing, have a platform where I could just talk because I got so many different experiences that I would love to talk about. And now, because of that, realizing that, I can't be comfortable because it can be taken away just like that. Because how long you been on the job, they could take it away just like that.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. And it would be the one you least expected to snake you. The one you least expected, the one to get at you, to mess you, to try to take your life. Somebody you know for 12 years, known this dude 12 years. And he's the one during the pandemic with an empty building, nobody in the building. We in the school, an empty school, and you trying to take away my livelihood. So it's a rude awakening that I needed to snap me out of that comfort zone. That's why I said, yeah, I definitely want to do the show. Because now it gave me somewhat of a freedom now. Because I start losing myself. I start losing the hunger of me being me. Because when you're in them systems, you gotta, even though you could be just as radical as you want, you gotta be that spook who sat by the door. Because you don't want to get kicked out. Because while you're in there, you can make so much change. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the book, but Spook was out by the door on a movie, one of the best movies, one of my favorite movies of all time.
You know I'm
because it puts you, yo, people sleep on it. I had an opportunity to meet him personally. He actually signed a book for me. Yo, you got to put yourself in that situation and you take the risk of being called a sellout and everything else that you've been called. I've been called Uncle Tom. I've been called sellout by black folks. Uncle Tom, sellout, this, that, and the other, because they identify the suit and the tie as you work for the establishment till they get to know you. So they don't realize that you're advocating behind the scenes. And now you fight with the parent who don't realize that you're advocating for them on this side. And the parent think because you wear the suit and the tie that you disconnected, that you don't understand the culture, the community, or whatever, until they get to know you, until they realize all the fighting you're doing for them on the other side. So again, back to what Farrakhan always said, you gotta love your people more than they hate you. Because they're gonna hate you.
It's funny that people will call you Uncle Tom, right? And what I found interesting with that comment is, I think the third person we had on our show was the great grandson of Uncle Tom.
I remember he's telling me, yep.
Which was Saladin Quinal. And if you really knew the history of Uncle Tom, individuals would take with a badge of honor.
Yeah, no doubt. Uncle Tom was a stand-up dude, man. If you read Uncle Tom's Cabin, he didn't snitch, bro. He didn't tell. That's what got him killed. We should be calling people Sambos. That's what you should be calling.
Right.
Because he's the one who snitched and told.
You know what I'm saying? And that shows you how the devil changes the narrative of everything. He puts a spin on everything. You know what I'm saying? Sambo was a snitch, but you can be called a Sambo and laugh it off today. But you be called the Uncle Tom, individuals be ready to fight, not knowing their history. Not knowing the history of individuals like yourself. But we got about 10 more minutes into the show. But I want the people to hear some of the things that you have going on with yourself now, outside of just assistant principal, pre-pandemic or post-pandemic type of situation that you're striving to get with your organization.
Well, right now we've been on hiatus because of the pandemic. Our main function under Sonia, which is the Saunders Omnipresent Network, Inspiring America's Youth Incorporated. That's a play on words. I was married previously. My wife passed from breast cancer. Her name was Sonia. So we named the organization after her because she was a teacher and we were dedicated to community work. And she's the one who got me involved with civic responsibility and being involved with the Belmont Lake Civic Association in North Babylon. So Sonia Inc., you can check us out on Facebook. You can see some of the work that we've done over the last 18 years. It's facebook.com/SONIAYINC. You can also go to some of the work we did for Uniondale on facebook.com/Uniondale, UNIONDALE, males, MALES, engagement. And you can see all of the incredible work that we've done, that I've done over the last 12 years to be exact. Sonia, the concept of Sonia was designed to pretty much be similar to the IM Corporation, where we use basketball as a lure. Basketball was our hook to bring people into the program, as bait and switch. So once we get them in after school, we're able to bring in guest speakers to talk about politics, culture, show videos, current events, college tours, chess, plays, and the Knicks and the Nets and the Islanders sporting events. We would expose them to all these different things. So because of the pandemic, we went into a little hiatus. The hiatus is actually becoming too long. The hiatus is literally too long because now it's a year and a half and the schools have not opened yet. And what my fault was, we didn't pivot during like everybody pivoted to the online platform. We didn't pivot because laborers are few. When you have a volunteer organization, people are with you for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. There's not many people with you for a lifetime and they're not getting paid. So we are a volunteer-based organization. I like the freedom of that because we have the power to do what we want. With government funding, it comes with a lot of red tape, and that government funding dictates to you how you can operate and gives you a bunch of parameters. I'm free and independent, so I can say what I want and do what I want through the organization. So we're in the process now of restructuring it to fit this online platform, putting together new visions, new purposes. We got coding and all these other state-of-the-art things that are taking place that we need to gear our students towards. Right now, with me taking on a new position in a foreign land, my whole career has been in the Black community by choice. For years, I tried to get back to our home of mighty Roosevelt, Long Island, but it wasn't meant to be because I kept getting denied. And I'm one who want to be there. A lot of people don't want to be there. I wanted to be there. So because of that, the Creator put me in other communities that look like ours. Malverne is a community that's predominantly Black. Unidale, when I first started there, was predominantly Black. Now it's predominantly Latino. Hempstead was predominantly Black. So God has put me where I belong. And now with me moving to Southampton, people say, hey, the word Southampton, and they think about the $175 million houses and all the celebrities have summer homes there. But there's a population there that don't have that. There's a population there that's in need of what I offer. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm only there, 2 months, a month and a half now. So I'm looking forward to this year to incorporate the tours, to incorporate the guest speakers, to incorporate the knowledge and wisdom that I have, the study groups and the informational sessions and the Zoom calls and the open forums for the young men to really be able to speak and share their heart. Because a lot of times the brothers don't have an outlet. They don't have an outlet where they can come together and just build and just freely understand. We used to go to the FOI meetings on National Park Avenue, on National Road, if you remember. The FOI used to meet right on National Road, and we get a chance to hear brothers build and interact, call and response. So I'm looking forward to bringing what I do to Southampton, getting involved in the community of Southampton, getting involved really with our native brothers, the Shinnecock brothers on the reservation out there. The need is incredible for being able to build their culture and the self-esteem and to realize how great they are, the relationship between the African-American community and the native community, how when we ran away from the plantation, the natives they took us in as refuge. They hid us. They kept us safe. And that's why a lot of them look like us, because we intermarried. And so that history, they don't know. So I'm there in that position to really bring forth that history and that culture. I'm looking forward to getting involved in the community that I live in now. I was just honored yesterday in North Babylon, which is a community I did a lot of my community work in. It feels good when people recognize what you've contributed. But we live in a society, what have you done for me lately? So all of the great things that I did in the past is just that, in the past. I'm looking forward to great things that I'm going to do in the future. So it's all about, what am I going to do? Now, granted, I've done more than most organizations by myself for the last 25 years. And I got a resume to prove it, and videos and videos on top of videos to prove it. But it's not about what you've done before. So what are you going to do? What kind of legacy am I going to put forth for my children to see now? Not to hear stories about what daddy used to do, but what is daddy doing now? How is daddy impacted? So I'm heavily involved in my church right now. I'm the head of security. And I'm also an advisor to my pastor, who's really culturally aware, socially aware. So I'm putting myself in a position to build a new foundation, kind of reinvent yourself, just like you do, John, quite often. You reinvent yourself because the old you was good in that time period. The new you is for the current time period. So I'm in the process of putting together the new me. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited about what the future holds and opportunities that it may bring, not only for me, but for my organization, for my community, who I may network with out there, who I may meet out there, who can change the trajectory of our lives, to change the trajectory of those connected to me. So it's about, again, networking. We don't teach that enough. We teach, our generation was, our parents told us, oh, go to college so you get a good job with benefits. I'm teaching mine that, if you do go to college, network, develop relationships. So therefore, when you get out, you can build. You don't know where people are going to end up. you know what position they're going to be in. If you network, your ideas and your business and their ideas may marry, and you got a direct connect already. You got an inside person. Because like the other man, they have inside people all the time. It could be the uncle, the aunt, or a cousin or family friend. They got to one step up because it's inside. We got to learn to develop those networks of our own. And regardless, in a multiracial network, because money is green. We need a network of people for our business ideas that's not just within our community, but a global network. Because the world is global now. These phones and devices make everything global. We're dealing with a global market, not a local market. We're competing now against people all over the world. So why not network with people all over the world? Why not put ourselves in a position of power and influence to influence the world? Because we can do it. So we just got to be mindful and focused on that. So going forward, like I said, I'm excited about what's to come and what kind of life my kids are going to have. Sometimes I get concerned, but we're in a better position. Our ancestors paved the way for us to get here. We've been through everything that you can imagine, and we still here. We like Robin Harris used to say, we baby kids. We don't die, we multiply. So we got to put some focus and structure to that. It's not just being a cliche, but we got to continually build foundations and not use excuses because we have more opportunities. You can learn anything you want without going to college by your phone. Anything you want to learn on the planet, you can just put into your phone. You don't need to pay tuition no more, literally. You need to go to trade school because they give you trade school classes right on the internet. So if you really want to learn something, this is a great tool, free tool. No Dewey Decimal System, no card catalog. Everything is digital. So what are we going to do with it? So those who are out there in the listening audience, I challenge you to create something that's tangible that you can leave for your children. If you're not connected with your children, reconnect with them. If the baby mama's driving you crazy, find a way to suck it up to get access to your kid. Do what John did. Take the baby mama to court. Instead of her taking you to court, take her to court to get access to your child. Because your child needs you. I was that child who needed a daddy. And I didn't realize that until I got older. And it's the most hurtful thing in the world. And you come from a community. During those days, if you remember, John, some of these fathers had two families on the low. And they were visible in both families' lives because they was men and honorable. Now, everybody didn't know that they was tipping around till the funeral happened. And then all these siblings come up and the second wife come up. But he was known in both sets of families. And everybody maybe didn't know, but he was responsible to take care of what he created and what he produced. And he was a provider somehow for both of them and didn't make it nowhere close to much money we make today. So if they could do it back then, what is our excuse now? See, we make too many damn excuses. So it's time to stop making excuses about what didn't happen before, but what are you going to do now? What impact are you going to have now in this society?
That's the key to everything. Right now, we're coming up on the last 5 minutes. I want to say to you, thank you for coming on. You don't know how much this means to me personally. Like I said, from the very beginning, I wanted you to know how much of an impact and role you played in my life coming up. Because you saw my highs, you saw my lows, you saw my struggles, you saw everything. And as much as because I frustrated you over the years. Over the years, I've always frustrated you because you always try to figure out what was going on. You never turned your back. You never, no matter
done more
what
than
the situation.
frustrate me over the years, but when we grow up from babies, bro, hey, it's like it's like having a blood brother. You're not always going to agree. There's times years we didn't speak for good reason. So it is what it is. But when you love somebody, you love them, and it's like you figure it out. And now we could build because you're in a different space in your life. The previous space in your life, you just didn't fit.
No, that's it. And that was something that I had to get to. I had to mature to. It wasn't an idea of what others wanted me to be. It was an idea of me having to be me. And watching you be successful with being comfortable to be you. was like a pattern for me, like a blueprint for me. Like I tell anybody, like my old me, I wore two hats. I wore two hats. I was street dude, and I was the good kid. Street dude and the good kid. When I used to come back and tell cats what I was going through in the streets, nobody never believed me. They thought everything was exaggeration until individuals get to talking about it. And then they go, not him. He plays football, he goes to school, he this. His mother's this, his mother's involved with this. He's around these type of individuals. But
and he got
I
over
was
1,000 on the SAT.
yeah. Yeah. Got
Which I never did.
And I never had to test, like study for tests. I never had to sit there and have a study session for tests. I took the SAT. I never took the practice SAT. I just walked in and took it. That's just always the way it's been for me. But I was in an internal battle with myself, dealing with what I was dealing with at home, dealing with what I was dealing with. So it was like I was battling myself. But it took individuals like you, like Born Professor, and my aunt Audrey and my sister Cookie and Pop and my mom and them and your mom and your grandma needing them holding me down. You know what I'm saying? Being there like for me because it took that. And we have to get back to the community being the village that raised the child because that was the circle that I had. I had that type of a circle in our community. And like I said, today was meaningful for me. And I wanted to tell you how much I love you. You know what I mean? Publicly. I want the world to know because this is streaming live all on the YouTube. People will see it. They're going to hear it on iHeart and Spotify and everything else. But I want you to know, me to you, how much I love you. You know what I mean? I'm 49 years old, which you're 50, 51 at this point. And you're like a big brother to me. And I love you.
Yeah, bro, we've been through it all, man. From day one, from 5 years old, brother, all the way up. Well, you was young and you 3, but from being kids, we've been together ever
Right.
since, man. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We
Right.
got through it, and there's a lot of all of it. That's life. That's the roller coaster ride of life. It's not going to be all gravy and cornbread. It's not always going to be perfect. There's going to be struggles. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be times where you don't speak. There's times that F that person and say, yo, whatever, I'm going to do me. I got to keep it pushing. And sometimes you get your feelings hurt. But hey, life is life, man. And if you're able to work through it, that's the redemption part of life, man. A lot of us don't get to redemption. We're able to forgive the other man, but we hold a grudge on something that somebody did from when we were 10 years old. I don't talk to him because he did this when I was 10. I'm like, yo, that's your blood family. That's your brother, your sister. I got family members that I don't talk to right now because they disown me. I say, okay, that's fine. I know I ain't do nothing to you. Well, I just try to help you. I'm like, okay, you got to accept that and move on to one day that space will be open when a different mindset. Maybe you can come back.
Bro, I hate to cut it off, but we're at the time now. But if you stay for like 5 minutes after the show is over, we can kick it a little bit. Right here, right now, I want y'all to know that.
I just stay here. I just stay.
Yeah, just stay on. And
I got you.
At the end of the day, you know what I'm saying. This is Real to Real 360. You know what I'm saying. I am Joshua Mello Law, Mr. PhD, Captain KY. Kick us up out of here, Lord.
No doubt. Peace and blessings, people. Once again, you have heard a dynamic show from the Real to Real 360 with our honored guest, Mr. Keith Saunders, Sr. And if you want any more information like that, you can contact us up here at any time. We at 3 Real to Real 360 hold nothing but love to everybody in all ages and of world. So on behalf of the nation of gods and earths, Allah's 5%, to all the human families on the planet Earth, to everywhere, we say peace, love, and unity. Y'all take care. See you next time. This is DJ KY.